is set up with a vision that all the preschools, balwadis, NGOs, children's activities, classes, parents, students, teachers, media houses, companies, all that deal with children's products, in short, everyone connected to young children can all come together to advocate, discuss, learn, and share, connect, and bring about a change in the quality of care, development, and learning in the early childhood in India. Dr. Swati Popatwats is the founder president of the association and is continuously guiding all mentors and territories to realize the vision and mission of the association. So, on this note, I welcome our esteemed panelists, Dr. Sahu, Ms. Nidhi, and Mrs. Ahmed, to this panel discussion in which we will be discussing about leadership in this crisis management, leadership management in this crisis period. So let me introduce our panelists first, say a few lines about them. They are very well known in their fields, and we are really proud to have Dr. Sahu with us. So Dr. Sahu is the founder of SONI International. And Sir is also here as he has a brilliant academic career since childhood, and he's a chartered accountant, cost accountant, a graduate in law, armed with a master's degree in business administration, specializing in finance and treasury, and doctorate in commerce. Dr. Sahu is the founder of the Sai International Group, comprising of 4 institutions, namely Sai International, Sai Angan, Sai International Residential School, and Sai International College of Commerce. Sai is amongst the top ranking schools of India. Presently, he has been elevated to the status of Minister of State on his appointment by the state government as the advisor to Odisha Adarsh Vidyala Sangathan, Department School and Mass Education. The government of Odisha, with the sole mission to establish 314 CBSE English medium government schools in each block of Odisha. That's a commendable feat, Dr. Sahu. So welcome and thank you for taking out time to be with us in this first webinar of ECA Odisha territory. So sir, over to you. We would like you to share your experience of how, as a leader, you have been able to manage this situation. I know because leaders have, the whole onus actually falls on the leaders, how to lead their teams in this crisis and how to manage in this unprecedented times. Sir.
Thank you, Sumanji, for your kind introduction, and I feel it a privilege to be in this panel. Mankind is going through an unprecedented situation, the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. Nobody had any experience of a pandemic of this magnitude, where more than 220 countries have been impacted. Almost 5 million people are already infected. About around 3 lakh people already lost their lives. And the country, particularly if we take of India, country has come to a standstill. The lockdown has made each one of us stay inside our house, afraid of our life, and not able to think, what is going to be tomorrow. Under this situation, when the schools were closed, government announced the schools to be closed around 12th of March in Orissa. This came as a surprise because this was a sudden announcement and nobody was prepared, what is to be done. So the first management crisis came, how to react to a situation where everything comes to a standstill without notice. The first step for any management of any organization or any institution is to first connect with the people who make that institution run. So in my case, it took me almost 7 days to connect, talk to, and motivate my team that yes, this situation has come and we have to face this situation. And in this situation, how do we handle so that the learning doesn't stop? So we thought of coining a slogan that the Sai school is open, but the building is closed. So our building is only closed, but the schools are open. So with that tag, we immediately worked with our technology team. So we have a large technology team with the technology team to see how learning can be seamless and how we can reach out to our students. So we tried various technologies, including Zoom, Google Hangout, Microsoft Meet, and we started working towards three aspects. One, the live classes. Second, the children engagement, both in academics and non-academics. And how do we do the assessment? So after finding a solution to the technology, the next thing was all that had to be done quickly because time was running out. After doing that, it was how do we train people because it was absolutely new situation, and people had to realize that teachers also can work from home. The concept of teachers working from home was the first time, and teacher using technology of this extent. They were used to a classroom teaching and using technology within the classroom. Now, using technology, work from home, and still teaching was a very new concept. So, children are all across the country. The technology backup is in our school. The services are from cloud, and the teacher is teaching from their home. However, within next 3 4 days, we could train all our people, and you'll be happy that we launched Sai Cloud School 1.0 on 1st of April 2020 with, as I said, the online classes, the hobby classes, the activities, the morning yoga and aerobics, expert session for parents, and various other things. Then, to make it more interesting, we connected to various schools across the country and some schools across the globe and created various formats where there can be teacher to teacher engagement to use of technology as well as student to student engagement and programs. So that brought in a lot of quality into the teaching. While doing this, the what I could see there was a sense of fatigue within the children, and they were not used to such screen time, and that was also not only impacting their sight and concentration, eyesight and concentration, but also impacting them and their sleep. So we had to bring in counselors, doctors to advise, how the screen time should be there and how there should be a gap, and how the children can do it, after on-screen classes, how they can download and do offline activities, and how they can upload, so that there are ways and means of handling this situation. Because it's the fact all of us have to understand that there is a new norm in education. There'll be more of technology use in education. This has got certain positive aspects also. People now have realized that teaching is beyond boundaries now. You can bring in any expert from anywhere in the world and make your children learn. Irrespective of time, you can make your children learn. After school hours, you can make your children learn. So now it's a question of leveraging technology for better learning, and this at a price, of course, which is COVID. But India's new norm will be a technology blended education, and how do we take forward? Maybe a situation will come where many of the theory subjects will be taught virtually or online, and maybe for the practical purposes or from doing some practice, they will come to school, which is there already in certain advanced countries. So maybe that's the new norm which is coming. Maybe there will be odd even, where 50% of the children, because nothing can be said what's going to be in the next 1 year. So this I said about the academics and managing, one part of the school, which is one stakeholder of the school, which are the students. The other stakeholder, which is the core of the school again, are the faculty. There is a sense of fear, amongst the faculty members that what's going to happen, what's the future, whether we lose our jobs, whether we lose our salaries. So we have, as a leader, to keep them motivated and to assure them that nothing is going to happen. It's a temporary setback, because nothing can separate a teacher from a student. Whatever technology may come, a teacher and a student has an emotional bonding, and that can never be replaced by any technology.
Very true.
Particularly if you think of early childhood education. In early childhood education, technology cannot do much. A toddler cannot be taught through technology. A toddler is taught through touch, feel, sense, smile, laugh. So you cannot bring in technology to teach a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old. How do you teach the kinesthetic skills? How do you teach the naturalistic skills, interpersonal skills? So it's you know people can talk of good technological terms, but in real terms, I think still research is going on, and I personally feel technology cannot do much in early childhood education. Early childhood education will still be one-to-one and teacher based, because there the personal touch is more important, because the child learns the way of living from a teacher, like the child learns the way of living from a mother. So teachers need not be worried. The other thing which as a management person, as an owner, or the head of the school wants to understand here is the finance. For the coming 6 to 9 months, your finance will be totally haywire. You will not have any clue what's going on. So it's conserve as much as possible, save as much as possible, reduce your expenses as much as possible. Ask people to defer some of their payments, and be prepared that normalcy will not come in the coming 6 to 9 months. So you have to operate your school with the minimum possible resources till December. Some sort of a normalcy, I will not say full normalcy, some sort of a normalcy, 60% normalcy probably may come around 1st of January. So these 6 to 9 months are going to be extremely, extremely crucial for you. So my sincere advice to all the school leaders will be confident of yourself, do keep on doing good work. Things will change. Things are difficult, but ultimately, as we are doing good work, as the society needs good education, quality education, nothing will go wrong if we are doing everything right. So be little vigilant, be little more hardworking, use as much as technology possible, reduce your expenses, and be focused on what you're doing. It's a question of 6 to 9 months. Everything will be not normal. But again, with a caveat, this normal will be a new normal. And what will be the shape of new normal? Time will tell. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. You're very right. You first thing that you said was to connect, motivate your team. That is very, very important. Connection, I think, more than anything else, is extremely important. And as you said, it was just overnight. We were just pushed into this kind of a situation. And so, for leaders, it is really a very big responsibility. And of course, with so many other implications that are financial and what is going to be the new normal, all that is also there. So now, thank you for your views. I'm sure we're all going to benefit with this. So now, I would request Mrs. Ahmed.
So, Miss Suman is not in the range right now, maybe due to some network connectivity issue. So, we will wait for Suman ma'am to get back, and we will have to just wait for a second, because as Dr. Vijaya has just, ended his
I'm
excellent
able
speech.
to
I,
listen to
I
Suman.
can, I can. Can you see me
You are able
now?
to listen to her?
Yeah, yeah, I'm able to see and listen. There's no problem.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So, Suman ma'am, I was not able to hear you, so you may continue,
Okay,
please.
okay, okay. So I was just thanking Dr. Sahu for all his views and perspectives. It is a great perspective, and with through his experiences, I'm sure all of us are going to benefit, because what he said is of prime importance, is that to connect and to motivate the team, and also various other implications that a leader has to face in this kind of a situation. So, what kind of behavior the leader should have? So, I think all those things are very important. And knowing Dr. Sahu and seeing his school, the way he has been conducting his and motivating his team, I'm sure things are going very well. And as he said, this is going to be the new normal. So, and actually, we don't know how much time this will take. So, thank you for all the valid points, Dr. Sahu. Now, I would request Mrs. Ahmed to tell us her views. Mrs. Ahmed is an education consultant, and she was principal of GEMS International School, and then also she was principal of DPS School in Punjab. Right, Mrs. Ahmed? So you can unmute your mic. Mansi, can you unmute Mrs. Ahmed? Yes, you are unmuted now.
Good afternoon. And yes, very rightly said, like Suman, thank you for giving me the introduction. I'm an education consultant, and my work is that of an academic advisor. I typically work in K to 12 school settings, but I'm also hired by parents to advise the children on the colleges and private schools. As an education consultant, I've had to juggle many duties and responsibilities. And to name some, I provide guidance to schools teaching faculty on curriculum development, observing teachers and making suggestions for ways to improve their teaching styles, and of course, increase the classroom participation. And I then even look into recommending resources and textbooks. But the main responsibility as an education consultant is in identifying the students' needs. And I do recommend strategies to help improve a school's ranking and an academic standing. Now, education, with this pandemic, educators had to rethink the need, how we need to educate our future generations. Technology has actually stepped into the breach and will continue to play a very key role in educating the future generations. As you know, the world where knowledge is a mouse click away, the role of the educator must change too. We've had to rethink how to educate and question what we need to teach and what we are preparing our students for. This disruptive crisis of COVID-19 can also help us define what learning should look like for Generation Z, Alpha, and beyond. Now, where the educators really focus during these times of disruption and upheaval will define them as true leaders. It is a fact that the humanitarian tragedy that continues has disrupted millions of lives. And sadly to say, I agree with Dr. Sahu when he said that we are not nearing the end of the crisis. And in such a situation, I only have a few suggestions to make that leaders at any level can take up 4 specific actions. These actions are the only ones. I may have missed out some of them in the rush to create an effective response, but then you always can add to your own experiences. Number one, a central and a clear list of priorities. We have all had to read, no matter how much we say we are prepared, yet everything went for a toss. Our curriculum, our calendar, our planners, everything went for a toss. So now what is the first thing that we have to do is create a central and a clear list of priorities. Centrally set out a clear set of priorities and locally implement them with a high degree of manager autonomy. What I mean is we need to empower managers to make the best decisions that they can, bearing in mind a clear set of enterprise priorities, such as keeping the staff safe and behaving ethically towards everyone. Number two, we need to pursue a non-binary approach to problem solving. Now, most of the people tend to adopt a binary approach to solving problems. For example, should we break up or stay together? I hate you, mama. I love you, mom. I hate school. Should I drop out? Now, these are the almost more options besides do it and don't do it. Now, there will be cropping up a lot many problems in this crisis, but our decision can create a lasting cohesion. Hence, options can be considered, for instance, reducing the full-time work, say to 80% for a portion of workforce, or even going to the extent of exploring early retirement options for some. What I mean is getting teams together to be creative and non-binary about solving their problems. Now, the third point is we need to be honest, empathetic, clear, and simple. Unless we are clear and honest and empathetic, our approach to communication, as it is in this COVID-19 situation, which has evolved and taken us all for a surprise. This is obvious, I know, yet I conclude that it is because it is so important and also because we live in an era of rapid dissemination of information that is of questionable veracity from multiple sources. So we, as leaders, have to be trusted source. Remember that in any communication plan, it matters less that you communicated something and more that your audience understood it. What I want to emphasize is that what our listeners take in, and especially in a situation that is volatile and unpredictable. I would say that we should go into 10 into 10 and 10 rule that should apply here. Let me insist. Communication well includes not being a victim of panic or hype and laying out clear actions for what to do and when. The 10 into 10 and 10 rule applies here. And may I elaborate it a little? That say something 10 times in 10 different ways for people to retain the 10%. And the last, which I would insist will be, I suggest in fact will be, Write down the stories. Now collect these stories with teams that are coming together to overcome the adversity. They are not only encouraged, it helps them remain motivated. Now, for example, people are capable of amazing things in this time of crisis. Like Dr. Sahu said, it was in 4 days, in a week's time. Many more other schools have also done this in a week's time. They have really revamped the whole thing. But what we would suggest is capture the details of these little stories. Don't summarize them too much. For instance, if Akash and Abhimanyu from the IT team were up until 5 in the morning in their respective home offices to get the VPN, that is a virtual private network system, up and running for hundreds of employees, and in between they had to drink, say, 17 cups of coffee to get there, please include it. Because humans respond to the detail of the stories to capture it. Good leadership is crucial, and therefore there is, this crucial, it has perhaps one silver lining, which is that this crisis represents an opportunity for leaders to create more team cohesion and innovation in the face of adversity. I think it's done.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mrs. Ahmed. I think this was really wonderful listening to you, because a lot of guidance we could get. And as you and Dr. Sahu have both said that, teachers working from home, this was also something which leaders had never thought of, but which has happened. And this is entirely because of the management system that has been created by the leaders. Overnight, they created this system. And what you said about how these times have taught us in these crucial times to rise up to the occasion. So leaders are rising up to it, and with all these experiences, I'm sure we will be moving ahead with ease and elan. So thank you so much. Now I will move on to Miss Nidhi Dhawan. Mrs. Dhawan, she is founder director. She's the principal director of Happy Hours, and as she was saying a little while ago, Happy Hours was the first preschool in Bhubaneswar, right, Mrs. Dhawan? So, Mrs. Ahmed has also had the chance to be one of the founder teachers in the school that was started by her mother-in-law. And also Mrs. Dhawan, she is ECA core committee member of the Odisha ECA core committee member, and always very helpful. Whenever any help is needed regarding ECA, I always reach out to her, and I'm never turned down. She's always ready and willing to help. So over to you, Mrs. Dhawan, for your thinking about the role of a leader in this crisis management. And since you are leading a preschool, so I'm sure there are different problems, as Dr. Sahu also pointed out. Preschools, online learning is something which is so very difficult and different. Even if it is there, it has to be in a very different context. So what was your experience, and what is your experience regarding all this?
Thank you so much, Mrs. Sood, for the wonderful introduction. Happy to be here and sharing screen space with Ms. Ahmed, you, and Dr. Sahu. I run a specialized preschool, and we don't have higher grades. And we are faced with unprecedented challenges, like Ms. Dr. Sahu has just mentioned. Our journey has to be different because we're dealing with a completely different segment of children in a different age group. I would like to talk about my personal journey before and after the shutdown. Now, two principles that we have been working with in the past, I would call them leadership principles, self-invented, and which continue to hold us good in these tough times. One is leading from the front. So we have our administrators, responsible administrators and curriculum developers who all take up immense responsibility to shape up the school every year. We were only 2 days into the shutdown, into the new session when the shutdown happened, and we were at wit's end as to what would be the next plan of action. It took us a couple of days, and then we completely got onto the job and started dispersing the lessons, audio explanations, worksheets. The curriculum developers were doing their bit, and then this was given to the teachers. This was especially done so that we could maintain quality across sections. What was very difficult in such a case was that the new session had begun, and the children had just seen their new teachers for about 2 days. They had a huge connect with the previous class teachers, and this was not happening now. They were used to listening to the old teachers. They develop a kind of bond, especially the nature of the children at 3 years, 4 years, and 2 years is such. So we did that, and the teachers were getting connected with every parent to understand the difficulties. We understood that the parents will become co-teachers at home. They have to sit with it. On a lot of discussion with some of my contemporaries who are trustees running other schools, I realized that for toddlers, for 3-year-olds, to remain in front of the screen was getting very difficult. We completely reinvented our curriculum to give them activity-based learning, kinesthetic activities, and socio-emotional plans were invented and incorporated in the lesson plans to be given to them. The other principle that has held us good was and is the sense of shared ownership to the school. We have realized that once an employee, a teaching or a non-teaching staff joins a school, they take it on themselves that in the progress of the school lies their progress, and it could only be it can boil down to their doing a sincere and effortful job. So these two have held us in the tough times also. We are reinventing lessons, and at the same time, we took it on us, some of the school leaders, to constantly call up the teachers and empathize with them and look after their social and emotional well-being, as well as the hardships that they were facing when they had to finish their household jobs and then dispense classes and address to parents. We faced our challenges, and we are reinventing at every step. For every habit to set in, 21 days are good enough. Now it's 40 and more days that we are into this. It's settling us. It had unsettled us. Now we are settled with this fact that it's there to remain with us for some time to come. It will have its own challenges. So the other thing was that our teachers, preschool teachers, were not only technically unsavvy, but they were averse to technology. Because I've always told them that the first language that you need to speak to the children is the language of love and touch. So this works well because we have 100, 200 toddlers coming in, and when we hold their hands and they take them into the school, we don't need much of technology at that end. But this is inevitable now. But we found that WhatsApp was good enough. Such young children are not used to screen time as much. The other thing that we've done with teachers is we've asked them to get used to some apps which can help them dispense lessons. Schools will reopen around 17th. Physically, the children may not be coming up to the schools till September. So we are working out a plan to and changing things accordingly. The third and the most important thing is that these teachers have to be. We are planning to prepare an action plan to integrate these learnings. They were asked to attend a few constructive webinars and do some self-development at this time, and we would be soon meeting once the lockdown is over to put these learnings into concrete lesson plans. The important thing today is that we need to harness these skills, different kind of skill sets that these teachers get on the table. When they are coming up with problems, we are asking them to find solutions to themselves. This has been a journey, and we will continue to do so. There are certain, the road ahead is not going to be easy. Many do's and don'ts are going to come up. We have to study the efficacy of all these things. What's going to work? Is it really going to work according to the temperature conditions and the environment that we live in? So this remains to be seen.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Dhawan. All very pertinent points, and you are right. It is really a different scene for the preschools, because we have been advertising and we have been saying no screen time for children, and now we are giving them screen time. So in a way, we are refuting our own statements, because we know children need concrete things, they need concrete environment around them. But at the same time, I think because this is all about connection. Because if we are able to connect the teacher to the child, so in present times, this is important. When children, they see their teacher on the screen, or they see the teacher, or they see other children also on the screen. So they are at least able to understand or able to get a bit of their normal routine, what they have been used to, because they are also missing school, they are also missing their teachers. So it's a whole situation is like that. So exactly what is right and what is wrong is difficult to point out at this time. But at least technology is helping us to make the best use of it. But of course, nothing can beat or nothing can replace the actual tangible touch. That is. Thank you very much for all your wonderful thoughts. So I come back to Dr. Sahu with a question. Have you had any issues with parents because for online learning, and also for issues like paying their fees, the dues? So what are your thoughts on that? And how have you been able to overcome it?
So you're asking two diametrically opposite questions. So it's easy and difficult to answer. So I'll answer the first question, issues with the use of technology and parent feedback on the online learning and the virtual learning. See, pandemic has brought everyone into such a situation, there is no option. Even if people do not like, there is no way out. So, like I said, if there are institutions I know who have just raised their hands and said that no, we will not be able to do anything because teachers are not there, teachers don't have the gadgets. See, I have over 600 teachers. Now I made it a point that most of the teachers teach. So the issue came that we don't have 600 laptops. I said laptop is not required for teaching. Passion is required for teaching, and technology will automatically help you how to teach. So use a mobile phone, and we will embed technology in such a way that through the mobile phone you can teach. And what we have done is through rotation, we have taken permission for the vehicles and the easel boards and the other aids which are required for the teachers is being sent in the morning to their homes, and the teaching is going on, and parents are happy about it, and the feedback of Sai Cloud 1.0 has been so good that we are launching next week Sai 2.0, Sai Cloud 2.0, and in Sai Cloud 2.0 we are adding various new verticals, like we are introducing the language program, we are introducing the assessment, both objective and subjective. We are introducing global seminars. We are introducing the enhancement classes for the achievers. We are introducing the slow learning adjustment classes, remedial classes. So we are adding few more verticals into Sai Cloud 2.0. We have also created a DigiLocker for every child, and that will be launched most likely coming Monday or Tuesday, where every child can keep all that they are doing, both subjective, objective, project, collaborative works, and the teacher can check them and at ease at any point of time, and again put it back in the DigiLocker, and parents and the child, they've been given the password where they can check it. So technology is bringing in a newer dimension into education, and we are constantly, we have a backend research team which is constantly working, and I am leading that project myself because I take keen interest. I'm extremely passionate about education, and I'm in touch with my alma mater, Harvard, and I'm also talking to some of the professors in Stanford, and trying to see how we can embed more of technology into the teaching of our children, so our parents are happy. The other diametric opposite thing that you said, which is a national phenomena, is I don't know why a thought even comes that schools, if children are not coming to the school, the learning has not stopped, but parents, some of the parents will not pay fees. You would have seen yesterday, Supreme Court has given the verdict that the fees cannot be waived because the institutions have to run and the people have to be paid salary, and that stand is already very clear by Supreme Court. But there has been interferences and statements both from central government, state government, and activism of some parents. I'm only worried, what will they fate? One statistics, let me give you. India has about 75% of the children in the government school system and about 25% average. Delhi has more, Mumbai has a little more, but on the average about 25% in the private school system. You will be surprised to know that Orissa has only 7% children in private English medium schools, and 93% are in the government schools. So if there is this sort of activism, I'm sure this number in Orissa is going to be down, because how many schools can survive a 6 months or 9 months period to pay the salary and keep the schools alive? That will be same situation all across the country. So I feel good sense will prevail, and institutions need to be saved. Government will also intervene as the courts have intervened, and conscious parents will definitely pay. There will be some percentage of parents will not pay, and but I think things will settle down as soon as government probably announces that even if in odd even number, but schools are allowed to function, and slowly children are allowed to move in. Because this is a new situation where online education is probably is being taken by parents that this is no education, which is not a fact. And for online education, teachers need not do hard work because it's just virtual. So that's not the fact. So this dichotomy is going to be there for some time because it's a new situation. Everyone is handling, and as I said, a new normal will be there. A new style of management will be there. Parent understanding will slowly increase. Good schools are able to collect their fees, and I think this situation will reverse quickly. And I'm very hopeful that for a parent, the future of the child is more important than saving 1,000 rupees, and they very well understand that. And every conscious parent is going to support this school.
Oh, thank you, sir. That was really nice to hear. As you said, good sense will prevail. So we are also hoping, because this is becoming an issue. So Early Childhood Association has taken out an appeal for parents regarding the payment of fees, and they have, we have come out with this one-liner: early education, care, and education is an investment. not an expense. So parents should understand this, that it is such an important part of their lives, and when we are all investing in it, so teachers are working overnight. In fact, teachers are working more than what they have been doing in schools, because in this situation they are looking after their house, they are looking after their work, and any time of the day they are at call. So, and it was wonderful to know about how your school, Dr. Sahu, is now reaching out to children on a one-to-one basis, because this would have been my next question also, like how to manage online learning with children who are specially special children or specially challenged. So thank you for addressing that as well. And now over to Nidhi for any closing comment.
Here, I just want to mention one thing, that the fees, like Dr. Sahu said, that the teachers are very honestly justifying what they are doing, and reaching out, addressing their household problems, and then getting back to children, parents reaching out to parents, teaching the parents to teach their kids who are at home. If there are many budget private schools who are completely dependent on school fees. If there is even a slight, the teaching job is not the best paid job in the industry. So with whatever is being paid to the teachers, if it is reduced in any way, it will demoralize them. What a teacher needs to be happy and be delivering what she is supposed to deliver. Her mental state reflects on the mental state and happiness state of the children. I definitely would appeal to the preschools. Yes, there are challenges, and we are reinventing ourselves to give the best we can through technology, So this needs to be addressed, and where we definitely find genuine cases of some parents who are completely dependent on their professions, and they think that we could extend and reach out to them if we are fluent, and people who could afford and they're getting their salaries can pay the fees. We can be selective and reach out to those parents.
Very true. So, Nidhi, on our ECA territory group, all territory groups, this appeal letter by ECA has been posted. So have a look at that. And in fact, you can share it with your parents also, because all the points have been beautifully addressed, and very well drafted letter. I'm sure your parents will, look forward to pay the fee after reading that letter. They'll go out of their way. So anyway.
Fortunately, parents are with us.
Very good. Thank God for that. That is one big problem solved for all of us. Now,
Mrs. Sood, you're on mute.
Yeah, your ending comments, please. Yes. And any advice?
Yeah, first you have to
You have to unmute your mic.
On that end. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Your advice to parents regarding anything, regarding online learning, or how would you address parents and give them your advice for dealing with children during this period?
This is a time and period where every parent needs to get connected. It's come as a blessing in disguise, truly speaking, because there were parents, even as a principal, I've noted that there are parents, the children come in, they go, they pay their fees, they do everything, but sitting quality time with the children was never there. So this COVID has come as a blessing in disguise, that the parents are now sitting at home tutoring them. But as a school principal, I would request, and I would also ask another question before it slips out of my mind, to Dr. Sahu. What about artificial intelligence? Now, what I feel is, this AI can automate the expedition of administrative duties for teachers and academic institutions. Educators spend so much of time on grading exams, assessing homework, providing valuable responses to their students. I think artificial intelligence will now allow for automation of classification and processing of the paperwork. If that Is it there in Dr. Sahu's school? It would have been wonderful. It would be really wonderful, because I've still yet to see. I've worked with DCM International in Punjab. We had so many things, but artificial intelligence had not come in. So maybe Dr. Sahu already has it and he will reflect. If I do have some, I would ask him to
Dr.
reflect.
Sahu, your views, please.
Yes, because this is artificial intelligence is now, the term. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Your
so-
response, Dr. Sahu, please.
Yeah, good point. So what we have done is, in our assessment tool, we have embedded artificial intelligence on two aspects. One, the learning outcomes are automatically assessed, and the teacher load is low. But more than that, we have we are using artificial intelligence more into the analytics of breaking down subjects into the various aspects of a subject. Like, let me tell you, so how we are using artificial intelligence in math. Instead of judging a child, how much mark the child has kept in a particular in a problem, rather what is the numeracy skill, what is the logical skill. So that is being mapped through artificial intelligence. Also, we have a set of questions through which we are able to assess the nature and the behavioral pattern of children using the tool artificial intelligence. So we have developed three softwares embedding artificial intelligence, and which is being run on every child, and we give a detailed report on that aspect to every parent. So now, with the more use of technology, and since we are unable to actually see the child, so this aspect we are trying to embed more into the assessment tool that we are introducing in Sai Cloud 2.0. So we are doing, and we have a development team, IITians who are working with us. Also, we have taken the help of education initiatives of Mumbai, and we are using their tools. They have now developed some more tools into their MindSpark, which is helping us into the skill assessment.
And sorry, Suman. I put a question across, which should have come from you. Now, can you hear me? Suman, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. And then if there's still time, I would like to say to the leaders leading schools and institutions to make sure that we collaborate and talk to other colleagues in other schools. I mean, create a forum for sharing advice and support, maybe in the form of LinkedIn group or educators based in international schools to share any insights or knowledge you have. Then we can create video blogs to support learning whilst being online during the scheduled timetable. What we hope is a positive plan in place to start the home learning journey of our students and staff. And another thing that I always tell my students is,
I think she's been logged out. So this is exactly what we are doing at ECA, and now we have APER also, that is Association for Primary Sections. So this is exactly what we are doing, sharing with each other, collaborating with each other, and as Dr. Sahu also said, with schools in Bhubaneswar, he has been collaborating and making sure that each one learns from the other, because collaboration is the main key now to this learning. So now, thank you very much. My special thanks to all the esteemed panelists for being here, for sharing your wonderful views, and for giving us guidance. And I, as mentor of Odisha territory, ECA territory, and National Core Committee member, and Director VD Memorial, I thank you all for being here, for giving your time and sharing the views. And we hope to have many more webinars, and we hope to share more and more. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Suman, and it was a pleasure sharing with Nidhi. She is doing great work. All the best, Nidhi.
Thank you so much.